Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Be a Great GM and part 3 of our exploration series of music. Now, it has become apparent in the conversations that we've been having as a result of these videos that perhaps I'm not particularly clear on how I use the full soundtrack within my game. A lot of you have been writing in saying, but surely if you are using a soundtrack to drive your game, what happens when the soundtrack changes to something that is not particularly relevant to the scene? Should you then suddenly change course to match the music? This is an error on my part. The music should never drive your narrative away from where you want it to go. It should augment and supplement where you are taking your story. It should also act as a reminder to you about adding in an extra little bit of flair. So what I'm going to try and do is give you a practical demonstration of what I mean. Now, this is my sound system, and here you can see I've got my Battle Bards soundtrack loaded up. There's a variety of tracks here, and I know, being very familiar with the particular soundtrack, that we've got two very dark pieces. Then we've got some light woodland-like stuff, which you've heard before. We've got the dwarvish temples and things. Then we've got an elvish song. Then we've got giants on the warpath. We've got halflings singing a song. We've got orcs on the march. And then we have an underground city. So if I was running a campaign and I had decided that I was going to start said campaign at the beginning of this particular soundtrack because I quite like it, I just press play. Now, this is the halfling camp, which is fine. It can go. I'm playing it really loud so that hopefully you can pick it up on my microphone. My technology is just not good enough to be able to put it underneath at the same time, so you'll have to grin and bear it. Now, the important thing is to remember, oh, there's a song I like. They're pretty good, right? Nonetheless, let's let them play around in the background as we continue on this idea of using the soundtrack to motivate. So let's say that we've set our little piece in this village where we've got this halfling song busy going on and the guys are doing whatever it is that they're doing. Now the scene shifts perhaps or stays with this halfling camp. The music, however, skips to something a little more ominous. Do I now suddenly change tactics and say, oh, the halflings suddenly whip out knives and start killing you all? No, not at all. Although that would be entertaining, that might not necessarily be your plan. What's important is that you use the music and you go, okay, this is not necessary. I don't want this. So you could just skip back to the song that you want. And if you know that there's another lighter piece coming up a little later, well, you can skip to that too. The important part, though, is about knowing what music's coming up so that you can prepare. So that now that we've finished with our halfling encounter and the wise old halfling has pointed the troops off in that direction of the orcish war camp, I know that when this song gets to the end of its beat, I can say, and as you walk away, you hear the halflings in the background, merriment going, there is beer spilling about everywhere, and of course everyone is singing your praises as you go forward into that dark forest that is just on the other side of the hill. As you walk over the hill, the sounds of their camp disappear into the distance, and it is simply you and your companions and the starlight that now remains. As you head deeper and deeper into the forest, you start to lose that hope and warmth that you had at the previous camp, and a sense of dread and foreboding starts to warm over you. As you head deeper and deeper into the forest, you start to become aware that you are being watched. So it's about using the music for your transitions and not being afraid to skip around or to repeat the music as necessary. So the music is there to help drive pace so that you can slow your tone down or you can speed it up depending on the scene that you're setting. And you can quite happily skip around without any problems whatsoever. And I have repeated that a couple of times to make my point. The music is there to make you great, not to drive the story. So if we now stop this, and I can stop shouting now, and we go back, hopefully, to our playlist, we can, by familiarizing ourselves, choose where we want to go. We can go one step further back to all of the different soundtracks I have. Don't be afraid to compile, for lack of a better word, playlists of entire soundtracks. Certain soundtracks might be slightly lighter in tone, and so those you can use for a slightly lighter section of your game, but you're still using the individual tracks to drive the tempo and to give you inspiration. The key thing is about using the different types of music. Now, I have a whole bunch of soundtracks loaded up here, which I compiled for a game I was running, The Curse of Strahd. I needed very dark and very ominous music. So I've got things like the soundtrack to Aliens, which as a soundtrack has got quite a lot of battle music in it. Aliens was the second incarnation of the film, where the Marines are going actively hunting after a group of aliens. So the soundtrack's a little bit more ominous, but it's still got some very scary music in the background. Coupled with that, you've got Batman and the Dark Knight. You've got Battlestar Galactica for some airy kind of music. We've got just the whole collection of the Game of Thrones stuff. We've got Godzilla. We've got Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I put in the House of Frankenstein, but it was just too comical to fit with the theme. We've got Jaws, Jaws 2. We've got Lost, the TV series. There are other soundtracks, of course. There's Predator. Either one of those is good. And of course, then there's just a whole range of other kind of scary sounding type of things. And then there's other soundtracks that I use for other games. So the key when using music is to identify the general tone that you want to use, build up your lists and say, right, I'm going into a particularly dark kind of section, so I need to scrub through to the soundtrack that I know that works best for that, and that happens to be this one, and I can start on this track here without fear of it not working for me. And of course, in the distance, it starts to build and it starts to set the scene for me. The last piece that I just want to touch on briefly in this almost explanation of the previous two videos that we've been doing is that I'm playing it way too loud here, but I'm doing that so that hopefully it comes up on the microphone itself. You wouldn't have to do that. And don't spend so much time busy playing around, as I've been doing in this demonstration, with volume control and that kind of thing. Sometimes you can raise the volume if you want to make real emphasis on something, but generally speaking, it should always be in the background so that you don't end up competing with the music yourself, because then that just makes a very bad experience. Unless, of course, it's for a very particular kind of reason. Oh, that's better. So the music is there to help you, to support you, never to control you. Don't feel that you have to follow the music simply because it's in the soundtrack. It is there to remind you and to drive you and to inspire you, not to control you. I hope that has been helpful in clearing up some of the confusion that was around the show's previous two episodes. And if you missed those two episodes, you can catch them on this channel. Until next time, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. And happy gaming.